Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Wednesday, May 19th. It's Ian Cameron and Alex B. Smith with you, ready to break down the Wednesday card and to steal a line from Morency, my good buddy, as we pick up the pieces post-betcast. That's exactly what we're doing here. Picking up the pieces in a good way, though. We're not picking up the pieces as in something disastrous happened. In fact, it was quite the contrary. Last night's first ever Ice Guys betcast was awesome. It was off the charts. The camaraderie, the company that Alex, Jimmy, and I got to have with our loyal fans and viewers and listeners and the people that are the lifeline of this show that give it life because they watch us and they join us every single day to get great NHL betting coverage on a daily basis. They made the betcast what it was. Everybody involved, there's too many to name, would be here forever, but you know who joined us on the stream last night during the betcast. It was absolutely outstanding. Great camaraderie, lots of fun, lots of laughs, lots of great conversation. Everybody's just down to earth, chill, relaxed, and like to just have a good time. That's what I was impressed by with seeing and talking to a lot of people for the first time, face to face and all that on the betcast. And yeah, I mean, from a betting perspective, for me, it was an up and down night with the pregame bets, but we cashed a couple live winners. We had the over in the Vegas game, 3.5. I took that knowing that there could be an empty net goal or a late goal. We got that. We had some goal scorer props that cashed in the Pittsburgh Islanders game very quickly. I mean, we got Brian Rust and Jeff Carter goal scorer props on the board in the very first period. So that game was very good. Florida was disappointing as someone that liked the Panthers there. And, of course, Vegas did what they had to do, tie the series up 1-1 as the scene shifts to Minnesota for Game 3. But all in all, an outstanding first-ever betcast. We're aiming for Friday night, guys, for the next one. So stay tuned for that. We'll make it official probably in the next 24 hours. But unless, suddenly something happens where the technology or internet gets cut out or whatever, we're looking at Friday night for sure for our next betcast. So hopefully if you didn't join us last night for the first betcast, you're able to join us Friday night for the next one. We're definitely looking forward to it. Start of the weekend. What better way to start the weekend than another booze fest on the Ice Guys betcast on Friday night, watching and betting some hockey. Can't get better than that. Alex, I know you joined us for a big part of the night as well on that betcast. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a blast, and thanks to everybody who joined us, and whether you watched or you're part of the conversation, it was absolutely awesome. That was a lot of fun, and like I said, can't wait to do that again. So we maybe turn around and do it as early as Friday. So definitely looking forward to that. But I definitely enjoyed the night. Like cashed some live winners myself. Had first period overs in both Tampa, Florida, and with the Penguins Islanders game. And the thing was, I mentioned it on the show earlier that day. I said I'm gonna use this live time to attack these better numbers, and we got two great prices plus prices that we wouldn't have had if we'd been in pregame. So really happy that everybody tailed along with that, and like I said, it was just an absolute blast.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't even a show. I mean, it's called a betcast show. It was a party. It was a get together. It's like, if you were actually with, friends and family and relatives in your area and you just hung out and drank and watched hockey. And that's exactly what it was, except it was virtually. It's the only difference, but it was the same kind of atmosphere and environment. And it was great. No question. So and we were talking off air right before the show, Alex and I did consider for sure Thursday maybe being the next betcast, but I figured, you know what, it would be the same slew of games we got last night during the betcast. We want to vary it up. Friday we'll get Boston series, we'll get the Colorado series, we'll get Winnipeg, Edmonton, we'll get some different games on Friday night to actually watch and bet live during the show. And I'll be honest, and I'm sure some of you guys that were joining us last night maybe agree with me here. You might need a little bit more than just 2 days to shake off last night. So, let's give you 2 full days. No betcast Wednesday, no betcast Thursday. Let's bring you back Friday. You'll be a little bit fresher, a little bit more energy, be maybe a little bit more energized for a Friday night betcast than say a Thursday night betcast. And look, it would be a great way to start the weekend. So Friday night is what we're aiming for with our second betcast. Alex, how about some thoughts from last night overall, just on the 3 games quickly, and then we'll get to today's card. I mentioned it last night on the show, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. You can check out the end of last night's betcast. I basically gave you final thoughts, what I thought of last night's games. But what did you think? My first quick thought is that Pittsburgh, great game, bounced back from Jari. Florida, disappointing. The change to put Drieger in net didn't give them that boost that I thought. And look, Barkov and Huberdeau shut down. That was the difference in the end. And look, Vegas again capitalized on some chances, and Fleury outstanding in net, did what they had to do. Alex, what did you think of last night's games?
Yeah, I mean, they were all fun games to watch, and like you said, big bounce backs for Pittsburgh and Vegas. They needed those. That Vegas game, still interesting to see that defense is going to be the mantra moving forward with these two teams. And, it's not going to be the high scoring affairs we saw during the regular season. It seems like after 2 games, but now we got where series are going to shift venues. Now that series is going to go to Minnesota. You got the Pittsburgh series going to Long Island, so. Now we get to see, what changes are going to be made with, those teams now hitting the road. And like I said, Florida, disappointing loss. It's going to be really hard for them to bounce back now, having to go into Tampa. They won't have that same home ice advantage, that's for sure. Now it's going to be all Bolts fans, screaming their heads off. So definitely looking forward to see what happens in those respective game threes.
Absolutely. Okay, very briefly, Calgary and Vancouver here, this playing for exercise game to wrap up the regular season. Calgary minus 165 home favorites, the total 6 for the most part across the board. I wouldn't look in any direction but the over because of the fact that it's just a meaningless game. There's not a whole lot of defensive intensity and focus for these teams just playing out the string. You kind of saw that in the third period. The scoring exploded. Probably was a bit of a bad, not a bit of, it was a bad beat or push if you had the under in that game, because it was 2-1 for the longest time, and then you had an explosion in the final 5 minutes of that game to go over that number, or push if you had it 6 on the total with yesterday's game. But I think the Flames, it's their spot. It's Vancouver won their home finale. I think they wanted to. It was their final home game. They played like it. Now I think the shoe's on the other foot now in this one. Calgary's home finale, I think they want to put a final impression on everybody to wrap up their season, playing their final game here at home. But there's no way I'm laying minus 165 with Calgary. Just absolutely no way I'm doing that. So for me, it's just a small lean to the over, but just probably a lean is all it will be. Alex, anything at all for you at this game?
No, the same thing. The only thing I could look at here would be the over, especially at a plus price. But that's about it. Like I said, these games are just playing out the string at this point. So we could see a 1-0 game, or we could see a 8-7 game. I just don't want to even take a risk on it.
Yeah, and that is the last regular season game that we will have to talk about. So good stuff. It's all playoffs now after that. And that game, by the way, is an early afternoon game. They're starting that one at 3:30 Eastern time. So just be aware of the start time. They want no part of putting that game at the same time as the playoff games tonight. Speaking of which, the first playoff game tonight is a 6:30 p.m. Eastern start for TV purposes, so they could do the doubleheader and get to Winnipeg, Edmonton. The second game of the doubleheader on NBCSN at 9 Eastern. We've got the Boston Bruins minus 160 to minus 170 home favorites here. The total right now, 5.5 here, shaded to the under in this game. This is an interesting one to bet because you look at it, the Boston price has gone up significantly. I think there's some kind of boost that the Bruins get from an overtime win in Game 2 with Brad Marchand scoring the overtime win. Remember, they're basically 3 minutes away from going down 2-0 in this series. And then Taylor Hall gets the tying goal. Brad Marchand wins it in overtime. Bruins did what they said they would do, and that's throw a lot more pucks at the net against Craig Anderson. That's exactly what happened. I think you're going to see this Boston Bruins team end up really bolstered by that win. And I think in the first period of this game, they come out flying. I don't know if it means they win the game, but I think in the first period, you see Boston playing quite well. I'm going to go with the first period puck line on the Bruins here at plus 150. It's a very good price. Minus a half goal, Boston plus 150. I think they carry the momentum from Game 2's overtime victory into tonight. I don't want the money line for the full game. I don't want puck line or regulation line or any of that with Boston, because I do think Washington might start slow, Alex, and then get gradually better as the game goes on. But I think Boston, look, big win, excited, first playoff home game at TD Garden, first playoff home game with fans, obviously, in a very, very long time. I think that is just all the energy they need. They finally rattled Craig Anderson a little bit in that game. We'll have to wait and see if he is back in net, but I think Boston carries that momentum. I think the best bet for the Boston side in this game is that first period puck line, minus a half goal, plus 150 in this one. Alex, what do you think here with Boston, Washington game 3?
Yeah, I'm looking at the first period over with this one. We've already seen it cash twice so far, and you look at the last 6 games, it's 5-1 with the one under coming in that meaningless last regular season meeting where the Bruins are basically playing all their guys from Providence. So we've seen these two teams get off to fast starts. Like you said, I think that's where Boston's mantra is going to be tonight. So I like the first period over. You get it over 1.5 at even money.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I forgot to mention, I do like the 5.5 over as well, plus 120. I'm going to go with that again. I mean, the shots were incredible. The shot volume, the shot attempts. If that carries over, if you have that many shot attempts like you had in game 2 of this series, it's going to be difficult to keep any game under 6 goals total in this series because that was a high volume. That was a shoot from anywhere mentality. Obviously, Cassidy preached it for Boston after game 1 where they felt they just did not test Craig Anderson enough. But definitely you saw Washington put a lot of pucks at the net toward Tuukka Rask in that game as well. So interesting to see how it goes here, but the full game over I do like, and I like that Boston first period puck line, minus a half, plus 150. Next game is Nashville and Carolina. We've got the Carolina Hurricanes here, big favorites around minus 190, home favorites in this game. The total 5.5 shaded to the under. The Carolina Hurricanes, if you're Nashville, you're going to feel like a missed opportunity is what took place in game 1. I thought that was when maybe Carolina was their most vulnerable and maybe their best opportunity to beat Carolina was that game the other night, and they just let it slip through their fingers. And they got off to a good start, scored the first goal. They were tied going into the third period of that game 2-2, and then the floodgates opened once again for Carolina, and they cruised to a 5-2 victory. Jacob Slavin was a game-time decision in game 1. He played through a lower body injury, a game-time decision it looks like again today. It's an ongoing issue for him, but he played through it. I don't think he played that badly either, so give him credit gutting through that injury. Nedeljkovic obviously back in net tonight for the Carolina Hurricanes. UC Saros expected, of course, for Nashville. For the Nashville Predators, you just got to defend better. And I think if you're UC Saros, look, you're up against it in this series. If you're at Nashville, you're not the better of these two teams on paper. You're going to need your goaltending to be A+++++. And I thought UC Saros was only average, in game 1. I think a couple of those goals, he could have done something about them. I think if you're Nashville, you've really got to dummy this thing up, tighten it up, tighten up the screws. You can't get in too much of a up and down affair with Carolina. And that's the beauty of Carolina. They could win both ways. If they get in a pace-driven game and get in a little bit of a higher scoring, freer flowing trade chances kind of game, they can win that way. And they can win the low-scoring, muck-it-up way. Nashville, to me, can only win the muck-it-up, low-scoring way. So if you're Nashville, you've got to try to play much better defensively here. I actually do lean to the under in this game, but I don't bet a ton, and I'm not really interested in a 5.5 under at minus 140 with that kind of juice attached to it. Not necessarily, but I definitely would look toward the under. And I was on the over in game 1, but I thought, look, Carolina's rusty. Carolina didn't have meaningful hockey in the last few games. They'd already clinched the Central. That could be a little bit more of a ragged up and down style of game. And I think that's exactly what we saw in game 1. I think we're going to see a more tight, structured, lower scoring style of game tonight. So I lean to the under, and I might actually jump on the same thought process, Alex, as Boston with Carolina in the first period with the puck line. I might do that because, look, Rod Brindamore said he didn't like the start for Carolina the other night. He said he didn't think they started the game well, which means that's probably a focal point for the Hurricanes going into this game, to have a better first period. And I think he was right to say that. I think he definitely, I think he was right in his assessment there that was not the greatest first period in the world for the Carolina Hurricanes the other night in game 1 of this series. So I think you'll get a better start from them. Plus 150 with that puck line for Carolina in the first period. I do like that. Alex, what do you think here? Nashville, Carolina. Are you muted, Alex? I think you are.
Oh, yep. Sorry about that. Yeah.
There you go.
So, yeah, this is all hands on deck game for Nashville. If they can't afford to go down 0-2 in the series, and the way Carolina got that offense rolling late in the game, like you said, they have to try to muck things up, control pace and tempo, but that's not really easy to do against this Carolina squad. So, I would possibly even look at, and I won't be doing too many of these, but Carolina puck line. I think that Carolina can bring that same intensity. They should be able to win once again by margin. Like I said, Nashville, we've been talking about them all year long, even when they had the run to get to this fourth playoff spot. There still were some holes in their game, and I think Carolina's still going to be able to expose them. So I'll put me down for Carolina minus the goal and a half. You get around plus, I think, 170, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, liking the puck line, full game. Alex B. Smith with the Carolina Hurricanes in this one. I'll have goal scorer props posted on Twitter again. Of course, yesterday I purposely did not post goal scorer props on Twitter yesterday because I wanted people to tune into the Betcast to find out what I like with those. But I will have them posted on Twitter tonight. I will tell you, there's one in this game that's interesting to me because he had a bunch of shots on goal the last game, game one of this series, and he's going to be down the board a little bit. That's Warren Foegele, Carolina Hurricanes, plus 400. And he's been a playoff goal scorer for this team in past couple seasons. Remember, he scored some big playoff goals for the Hurricanes last year when they made a little bit of a run in the playoffs, and 2 years ago as well, this Carolina team. So keep an eye on him. Warren Foegele, he's a guy that is a depth forward. He's good on the forecheck. He goes to the front of the net. He's got a decent release as well in terms of his shot. But he is a guy that we have seen a pattern for him. Run-of-the-mill regular season, but elevates his game in the postseason. He did it 2 years ago. He did it last year, scored some playoff goals, big ones for Carolina. I think that is your value prop in goal scoring tonight in this game for Carolina. Warren Foegele plus 400. And again, he has had definitely some chances in that first game. I remember he got robbed by Saros in one of his opportunities he had the other night. So that's a goal score prop. I will be on that for sure. Plus 400 with Warren Foegele. All right, next up, we've got the first game. Finally, the North Division is ready to join the Stanley Cup playoffs here. Winnipeg Jets, Edmonton Oilers, game one of this series. Edmonton around minus 150 to minus 155 right now, home favorites. Total 5.5 here, shaded to the over in this game. When you look at it for the Winnipeg Jets, not the finish to the regular season they wanted. It's a question of, can they flip the switch and get it rolling again? That is the big question. The Jets are hoping to have some of their injuries back. Andrew Kopp is a game-time decision for this game. Pierre-Luc Dubois hasn't been ruled out, but he looks like he may not go tonight for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, he's kind of been disappointing down the stretch, but still, you'd like to have him in there if you're Paul Maurice. Nikolai Ehlers isn't even confirmed yet. He hasn't been cleared for contact yet. So there's a lot of people thinking he's not going to play tonight. And they say a lot of the beat reporters for the Jets here saying it's hard to imagine he'll be in the lineup tonight for game one, because if you're not been cleared for contact, they've labeled him a game time decision. But, if you really haven't been cleared for contact yet, how much of a chance do you truly have of playing? Like, you've not been cleared for contact, and you're going to go into the ultimate of contact sports, Stanley Cup playoff hockey, where the contact is 10 times what it is in the regular season, the physical play. So, Ehlers is dicey at best right now to play in this game. So you're talking about maybe no Andrew Kopp, who's a good depth forward. Dubois may be out. Ehlers may be out. Stastny was banged up in that game. He didn't practice earlier this week. Growing concern if he's going to be ready to go for this game. So there's question marks, multiple, and Tucker Poolman on the blue line as well for the Winnipeg Jets, although it does look like he's probably going to be good to go. But keep an eye on this. We're talking maybe a shorthanded Jets team tonight in this game. I do like Edmonton anyway, regardless of that. This is one of those games where, look, in the playoffs, I don't mind laying a bigger price sometimes. And this one, I'm on the Edmonton side, minus 150 to minus 155. No regulation line because of the propensity for the overtime games and the close games, and no puck line, none whatsoever. I'll eat the juice. I'll lay a little bit of a bigger price to go with Edmonton here, minus 150 tonight. And look, they didn't start the series well against Chicago last year. We know that. They just dug themselves a hole quickly and early and weren't ready to play. Dave Tippett said we need a great start. I could see that tonight from Edmonton. Learn from your mistakes last year. Look, it's another year older, another year wiser, another year more experienced for so many of these players. McDavid, Draisaitl, and company. Darnell Nurse. And look, Darnell Nurse is wasn't the defenseman a year ago in the playoffs that he is now. Look at the strides he's made in his career. So I think Edmonton, Alex, they're in a better position to just start better, have a good game one than last year. It was really a new experience, deer in the headlights almost for Edmonton against Chicago. We thought they were a talented enough team to beat Chicago, but the playoffs, they weren't ready. They weren't ready in any stretch of their game. They didn't have the forward depth. They didn't have the punch from the third line that they do now. They didn't have a lot of their defensemen playing at the level that they are now. Tyson Barrie's transformed this team. He's had a great season. They didn't have him last year. Like I said, Nurse is now much better than he was last year. I think it's an opportunity for Edmonton to win game one, get off to the good start in a first-round series that they didn't get off to last year against Chicago. The question is Mike Smith. I'm going to hope we get Mike Smith that we've gotten most of the season. I know down the stretch he was a little bit not at his best, if you ask me, in a couple of those games late in the season, but maybe it's just a late season malaise. I'm on Edmonton, though, here, minus 150 in this one. I think they get the job done. And like I said, this is one of those spots at playoff time. I don't mind laying the extra price. I do lean over the total 5.5 as well, because you've got these teams, they haven't played a big-time meaningful game in a while. That first game, you could get a little bit of sloppy play, much like how I felt with Nashville, Carolina going into that game one. So I like the over. I like Edmonton. Alex, what do you think here? Jets, Oilers.
Yeah, I like the Oilers here, and I'm not afraid to take this with the regulation price. This is a Edmonton team that's dominated Winnipeg. And the Jets, they pretty much backed themselves into the playoffs the way that they played down the stretch those last 2 weeks. I just don't see, especially if they have injuries that they got to deal with, where they're going to keep up with this Edmonton team. They know the pressure that's on themselves. McDavid and Draisaitl and company. Like I said, they didn't have a good playoff series last year with Chicago. Everybody's expecting either them or Toronto to make it out of the North. So the pressure is going to mount. I don't think they're going to crumble, at least not early in the series. I think they have the plus advantage in every aspect against Winnipeg. So I'll take the Oilers minus $1.05 in regulation.
All right, Edmonton in regulation minus a 105 for Alex B. Smith. And yes, let's hope that in a first round littered with overtime games, we can avoid that tonight potentially with the Edmonton Oilers here against the Winnipeg Jets. And yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate for Winnipeg. You love to see best on best in the playoffs. You don't want a team just littered with injuries and question marks. And unfortunately for Winnipeg, and they're all in the forward group, Andrew Copp, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Nick Ehlers, and Paul Stastny. And Stastny's not even a go for sure either. Yeah, Dubois and Ehlers both out. So we're just hearing that. Yeah, ruled out because you're right. They're just wrapping up morning skates now in Edmonton, I'm sure, right around now. So, yeah, bad news. Ehlers out, Dubois out. Copp, we'll have to wait and see. Stastny, it sounds like they might play, but we'll have to wait and see on that. We'll wait to see if we can get you an update on those two guys before the end of the show. St. Louis and Colorado now. Final game of tonight's playoff slate. Game 2. Colorado just dominant in game 1. That game could have been 7 or 8-1 Avalanche the other night, if not for Jordan Binnington. Colorado here, as you would expect, massive, massive favorites here. Up and around minus 340 even in a lot of spots right now with the Colorado Avalanche. Up even minus 380. Approaching minus 400 now as well in some locations. So obviously they're huge favorites. It's not every day you see 1-4 favorite in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Total 5.5. It's hard to say that it is not warranted, though. I mean, when you saw game 1, I made the tortoise and the hare reference. It's absolutely true. St. Louis is chasing the puck all night. They didn't have the puck for much of that game at all. Colorado had it all night. They were in the offensive zone. And then when that altitude and thin air kicked in, for a team whose average age, by the way, is north of 30. I'm talking about the St. Louis Blues. And you could see they were just dead tired. They were just gassed. They had stuck in mud, skating in quicksand, whatever term you want to use. And Colorado was skating rings and circles around the Blues. By the time that third period rolled around, that was definitely clear to see. And again, if not for Jordan Binnington and absolute heroics from him for much of the night, it's much worse than that 4-1 final score in game one. Look, I just don't know where St. Louis goes. I mean, is there a roster change that Craig Berube can go to change the series in his team's favor? I'm not so sure. I think this is just a difficult ask for the St. Louis Blues, who are still banged up. They miss Vince Dunn as well. And Colton Parayko, you got to love him for playing through whatever he's playing through, but that ain't 100% Colton Parayko, not in game one. If you watched him play, not even close. That's a concern. Like, he's trying to give it his all. He knows that this team is up against it in this series with this Avalanche team, with the 4 lines of depth, with 6 defensemen that can skate like the wind, that can pinch and get back in position because they're just such great skaters. He knows they're up against it, so he's trying to play through whatever injury he's got, but he's not at his 100% effectiveness, Colton Parayko. You can tell he's hampered, he's impaired by the injury he's dealing with. That's a concern. You would think St. Louis is going to try to fire back strong tonight, but at the end of the day, I don't see what keeps this Colorado from getting stronger as the game goes on, much like we saw in game one. And Binnington was just overworked a ton in game one. Sometimes when you face that many shots, the floodgates truly do open the next game when you're in net. I'm kind of worried about that for Binnington tonight in this game. I think St. Louis pushes back strong, but I think they're also going to leave themselves susceptible here to maybe another onslaught of chances, high danger looks again from the Avalanche, and maybe a better chance to capitalize on more of those than just 4 because of the fact Binnington, is now second start in 3 days in the thin air and altitude. You got a shit ton of shot volume in game one. You faced a ton of rubber. That can't be good news in terms of freshness. That can't be good news in terms of being able maybe to perform at your best tonight if you're Jordan Binnington going into this game. So I'm not touching a puck line or obviously the money line or even the regulation line or anything with Colorado. I'm keeping it extremely simple. Team total over 3.5. That's where I'm going with the Colorado Avalanche here in this game. No need to overthink it. No need to overcomplicate it. I don't want to worry about St. Louis and what they do or don't do and trying to avoid a 2-0 deficit because they'll throw everything they can at Colorado. But I'm pretty damn sure and pretty damn confident Colorado can get me at least 4 goals tonight in this game. So for me, it's Colorado team total over 3.5 minus 130. Alex, what do you think here? Blues Avalanche game 2.
Yeah, I like the total here as well. I like the first period over and the full game over. I think we're going to see St. Louis's best tonight, but that still may not be enough. As you mentioned, the way that Colorado's been just absolutely lights out right now. This is a dangerous team, and I think the fact that it was 1-1 at the end of the second period, and then that's when Colorado started getting things rolling late in the third. They want to get off to a faster start. And try to put this game away. So I totally agree with you on that team total over, but I think we'll see at least a couple of goals for St. Louis as well. So at even money, I'm going to take a shot with, like I said, the full game over. And the first period over should have cashed last game. That snapped a 6-game over streak in the first between these two teams. So I'm going to go right back to the well with that, laying $1.05.
All right, there we go. A first period over 1.5 and full game over 5.5 for Alex with the Blues and the Avalanche. I wouldn't argue with that. I think there is a chance St. Louis could chip in offensively, and I'd like Colorado personally team total over 3.5 here, minus 130. All right, great stuff. That is the Wednesday Stanley Cup playoff slate. Thanks to everyone again for tuning in. And one more time, thanks to everyone for not only tuning in live to watch the Betcast last night, but also those that joined us live on the stream. It was a fun time, to be sure. And I think we will have another one Friday night. So definitely looking forward to that. Before we get to best bets, a reminder, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up for an account, use the promo code THPN. A great time of year, of course. NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs daily, MLB, PGA Championship this weekend. There's UFC cards most weekends as well. Plenty to get involved with DraftKings. When you download the app and sign up for an account, you'll get a deposit bonus, weekly specials, and incentives, cash prizes, bet boosts that you can take advantage of as well. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up for an account, use the promo code THPN. All right, it's time for best bets for this Wednesday night Stanley Cup playoff card. Alex, what do you like for best bet tonight?
We're going to go with the Bruins and Capitals first period over 1.5 at even money. Like I said, this is going to be definitely one of those spots where I feel Boston's going to look to jump out and get a quick start. And like I said, these two teams have played each other back and forth early in games throughout this season. So we've seen the first period over cash with them two straight, trying to make it 3-3, 3 out of 3, I should say, with the first period over between Boston and Washington tonight.
All right. Washington, Boston, over 1.5 first period for Alex B. Smith with his best bet. Luke Murphy in the chat. Great question. On the first period bets, is there more value waiting in-game to place the bet? Yes, we have addressed this a couple of times, definitely. Wait till like 2-3 minutes. If you just even wait a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes into the first period, an over 1.5, you can go from a minus 120 to a plus 130 or 40. It can happen that quickly. We saw it actually last night while we were watching the Islanders-Penguins game. 100% right on that.
That was it was minus $1.40 or $1.45 if you bet yesterday during the time we were on air, and then within the 18-minute mark it dropped all the way to 120, and I think at one point it got to 150 before the first goal was scored. So yes, I like to use that tactic for higher priced totals, but yeah, feel free if you see even at a plus 100 or plus 105, it can be 150, 160. So you got to be really quick with it, but that's definitely sometimes a better option.
Yeah, for instance, this is around even money tonight with the Capital Bruin first period over, so it's better priced, much cheaper priced. Yeah, when Alex is talking about these, over one, we've seen over 1.5 minus 150 or minus 160 even in some games throughout the course of the season. So those are the ones where, hey, if you just take your chance, hope that it's a scoreless first 4 or 5 minutes of the game, and then you can jump on that over 1.5 in that first period and get a better price. And same with a full game over. If you don't like the price of a full game over at pregame, wait for that first 4 or 5 minutes, and the price shifts are sometimes worth it in terms of waiting, being patient, and then striking with an in-game bet as opposed to betting it pregame, no doubt. But definitely, and these are the kind of things we're going to continue to mention, by the way, when we do the bet casts moving forward, because there's some good strategy that's worthy of discussion, definitely when you're talking about betting hockey, especially at playoff time. Great stuff. That is the Wednesday show. Thanks to everyone for tuning in as always. And the betcast was awesome last night. Thanks to everyone involved with that. A reminder, you can watch the Ice Guys 7 days a week on YouTube, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, you can download the Ice Guys podcast on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeart. You can find the Ice Guys podcast on all those platforms. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on Thursday for another edition of the Ice Guys presented by the Hockey Podcast Network.